Welcome to the ninth edition of the CoP interview series hosted by the UN Women Training Center's Community of Practice, the CoP. I'm Ria Ligari, CoP and Virtual Dialogue Consultant for the UN Women Training Center, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Nur Hasyim, who will be speaking to us about the topic of masculinities and training for gender equality in Indonesia. First, I'd like to explain that the CoP interview series features a range of interviews with experts on topics related to training. The interviews will take place twice a month, and our series has been running from June, and it will last until December 2017. So each interview lasts for about half an hour, and our listeners have the chance to ask questions at any time by sending in their questions using the chat tab on the right-hand side of the WebEx platform. So without any further ado, let me introduce our guest for today. Nur Hasyim is the founder and head of the New Men Alliance of Indonesia, Aliansa Laki-Laki Baru, a national network of pro-feminist men's movement. They arrange workshops, training sessions, discussion groups, and engage men in gender equality, challenge traditional or harmful conceptions of masculinity, and power imbalances in society that give rise to inequality and violence. Nur has been working on the issue of gender-based violence and equality and engaging men for over a decade. And he's also written several columns on men, masculinities, and violence in a local newspaper in Yogyakarta, and he's hosted an interactive radio show called the Men's Hotline to encourage men to talk about their feelings and question traditions. Nur, I should also mention, is a member of the United Nations Secretary General's network of men leaders to end violence against women. So Nur, thank you very much for being with us today.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And so I thought before we speak a bit about your inspiring work as the coordinator and the head of the New Men Alliance, I'd like to discuss maybe a little bit about your personal experiences of training. So I'd like to know specifically what prompted your interest in engaging men to prevent and end gender-based violence in Indonesia, and also how did you become an activist and specifically a gender trainer on this topic?
Okay, thank you, Ria, for inviting me to this interview. And first of all, I would like to share about what the thing that make me engage in inviting men to join the movement to end violence against women in achieving gender equality. You know, when I was a student about probably 20 years ago, around in 1990, that at that moment I was recruited by Rifka Anissa Women Crisis Center. So this is the first women crisis center in Indonesia. You know, as a women crisis center, Rifka Anissa always we have women came to our office. They have experienced violence, for instance, from their husband, and some of them experiencing sexual violence. And you know, those cases make me aware that in our society, our female counterpart, our friend, our women friends experience a lot of violence in their lives. So from those cases, then make me aware about this kind of issue. And then in Rifka Anissa, I also got many chance to attend training on gender, and then I finally I know about the issue of gender and the issue of gender inequality in Indonesia, and the problem that women face in our society that tend to give privilege and power to men. So that's why through the gender perspective, I aware on this. I aware of this kind of problem in my society. So since start from this, since that time, and then I engage in the movement to end violence against women in Indonesia, and also I start to be a trainer. But before, at the beginning, I was not a trainer. In Rifka Anissa, my first position is as a public relation. So, as a part of my job, I'm organizing some communication strategy like developing video program and uh, and also to be a spokesperson of the Women Crisis Center that uh, dealing with the media and also writing a press release about the case and any other issue related to gender-based violence and other gender inequality issue in Indonesia and especially in Yogyakarta.
Hmm. And so from that, how did you move exactly from being a communications person and a spokesperson and hosting radio shows, for example, and then move on specifically to training? Was there a significant overlap, or did you decide that training was particularly useful anyway, or how did you make that transition?
Okay, yes, and when I was a public relation officer, mostly dealing with the media,
Mhm.
but working with media is not really not really intensive because in not like training because in training we communicate with the participant in more intensive way and at the beginning, I was not really engaging men and boys, but after I completed my scholarship in India and I joined with Men Against Violence and Abuse in Mumbai, India, and back to Indonesia, and then I start thinking about working with men and boys. Uh, because I think it is impossible to end violence against women without engaging men and boys. I think it is impossible just empowering women without transforming men. So from that, I think back in 2004, when I just completed my scholarship in India, then I started in targeting or involving men and boys in anti-violence against women movement. But at the beginning, it's not uh, establishing or forming or creating training for men, but still at that moment, working with men and boys through like campaign activities like I had uh, like a sport competition for young boys and also created posters targeting men. And as I mentioned that at that moment also I start a radio program what I call a gentleman hotline, and then also two weekly column in local newspaper in Yogyakarta discussing about the issue of men and masculinity and gender-based violence. So start in 2011, I think we think that we need to transform men using the training as a media. So
Mhm.
in 2011, I started developing the curricula for uh, male facilitator for men's group in eastern part of Indonesia, so in Nusa Tenggara and East Nusa Tenggara and West Nusa Tenggara. So I started by developing a curricula for facilitator training at the beginning. Uh, because before we running training in the community level, we need a facilitator who know the issue and so on and so on. So I start developing the curricula on training for male facilitators,
Mhm.
and then yeah. So that is I think in about 2010 and 2011. and at that moment I didn't really know about how to running the training for group of men, but using the internet, and I found one man can, I think, the project that ran in, I think, in Africa, and quite useful. And then I adopt some ideas from the one man can, and I adopted in Indonesian context. So I developing the curricula for male facilitator training, and then after that, together with male facilitator, we developing the 2 hours discussion in community level for
Hmm.
group of men and in grassroots level. Yes.
That's excellent. And I wonder if you could elaborate a bit more about the kinds of approaches you used, either to develop the curriculums that you use, or what kind of methods and tools do you use in these workshops?
Okay. Yes. According to me, that transforming man should must contain 3 different aspects. For the first, I think we have to transform man belief and about the concept of being man, or the concept of masculinity. And then the second one, according to me, uh, we have to train men, or we have to help men to have uh, personal and uh, social skill in building relationship with women and also with other men. And the last one, I think, the important component of transforming man and masculinity is transforming social norms that giving privilege and power to men. So so that is the 3 component that must be available in the training curricula for group of men in the community level. And the approach that we use for the whole training, we call it reflection approach, where in the training process we uh, facilitate or allow participants to reflect their own experience of being men, about the gender role, about violence that they experience in their life, and from and also using the reflection approach, we invite men to reflect on their own attitude and their own behavior uh, related to gender role, and also about the issue of violence. So um, using the reflection approach as well, we invite men, or we facilitate men to reflect about the consequence of the rigid gender role, and also the negative consequence of violence. For instance, for the victim of violence, especially women, and also for themselves who use violence in their communication with women or with other men. So we reflect the negative consequence, and also we invite men to think about the about other options, positive option in how to build a non-violent relationship with women and also with men. So so that is the reflection approach that we use in training. But I would like uh, to mention that uh, training in the class is just uh, one um, mm, aspect. And according to my experience, another important aspect in transforming men, or in transforming a group of men in the community level, is not just training in the class, but also uh, assistants and uh, consultant, yeah, individual assistant in the community level, and also using ourselves as a role model for them, applying a new concept of being man, and applying a new concept of relationship with men, with women, with other men in the community level. So that is, according to my experience, the approach that I use in conducting training for men and boys in achieving gender equality and ending violence against women in Indonesia.
That's excellent. I think the participatory approach that you outline is especially telling, and I think this idea of reflection, critical reflection, and inviting participants to really reflect on their own experiences is very, very strong. And I'm intrigued by what you said about, taking it out of just training in a classroom or in a workshop, and making it more also about having a relationship, I suppose, with a facilitator, whereby you can offer assistance and support and also offer yourself as a role model. I wonder what other kind of assistance does your organization provide? Is it counseling or what kind of assistance?
Yes, in New Men's Alliance, this is voluntary networks, and mostly using the free platform like website, and also social media platform like Facebook, Twitter account, Instagram, and so on. But we also join with other women's organizations that are supporting our alliance. So there are 5 women's organizations that supporting us. Rifka, of course, the first, and then there are other 4 organizations, and these women organizations also adopting male engagement approach in ending violence against women. And for instance, Rifka Anissa also have the behavior change program for male abusive partners. So they have a counseling. The other organization that also has the same program is Pulih Foundation in Jakarta, and also Rumah Perempuan in Kupang in East Nusa Tenggara, and also Cahaya Perempuan in Bengkulu in Sumatra. Those organizations running a counseling program for male abusive partner, and New Men's Alliance is a partner of this organization in running counseling program for male abusive partners. So some of the key members of the New Men's Alliance is also counselor. Like me, my academic background is not psychologist, but I attended some training on counseling. So I also run counseling in Rifka Anissa as a counselor. So Rifka Anissa, together with 2 organizations in Netherlands and also in Mosaic in South Africa, developed counseling manual. This is the only counseling manual for male abusive partner that we have right now, and become very important sources for us in Indonesia in running a behavior change program for male abusive partner. So that is part of our program. We in community level, as I mentioned, that we at the beginning we developed 2 hours discussion with group of men in community level. Now we start developing training or workshop, what we call it as a father's class. At the same time, we also develop a mother's class, because we believe that the project or transforming men should be done together with women empowerment. So program for men or transforming men and masculinity should be integrated with women empowerment program. So that is our principle. So the whole program that we run as a network, we do it together with our supporting organizations, that mostly women's group or women's organization, as part of the implementation of our principle that working with men should be part or should be integral part of women movement or women empowerment program.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. I think it's really two sides of the same coin. I think women's empowerment and, engaging men and transforming everyone's lives towards gender equality is very much, I think, part and parcel of the same, change project. And I think that sounds like an excellent idea to have partnerships between men's organizations and women's organizations and all of you working together towards this. And so I
Yes,
wonder, because, sorry, go on.
I want to mention one thing that for us, the accountability of men's program or men's movement in achieving gender equality is very important for us. So we will never separate our movement from women movement. So that is our principle. So that why we have a five women's group or women's organization that's to be our supporting organizations. And I would like also to mention about that New Men's Alliance or the Aliansi Laki-Laki Baru is a voluntary network. We will not run a project. So if there is a donor would like to support us, we will suggest them to support women's group, and then we will be part or we will be partner of women's group in running the program. So the whole program I mentioned, like 2 hours discussion, runs together between New Men's Alliance and women's organization that to be our supporting organizations, including the father's class, mother's class, and also youth camp. All those projects run by women's group, and we as a network, as an alliance, supporting this women's group in running the project addressing men and boys. So that is part of our principle, and this is also part of how we maintain or we we maintain our accountability for women's group in Indonesia.
I think that sounds excellent. I think that but this partnership is very interesting, and I wonder because you mentioned before that mainly you target local communities, the local community level, but you also mentioned youth groups. So I wonder when you're dealing with different groups of men and boys, how do you in your training sessions and in your projects with your partners, how do you contextualize the trainings or the discussions towards your participants? Because of course, in a certain area, a certain community, in a certain geographic region, if they're older or younger, if they're more rural or less rural, they'll have different experiences and probably will need different kinds of training and different kinds of discussion to invite them to reflect. So I wonder how you contextualize your training to these different groups.
Yes, I would like to mention about the framework that we use.
Mm-hmm.
One of the framework that we use, we call it ecological framework, where we believe that the issue of gender inequality and violence against women is uh, there's no single factor that causing violence against women. So there are many layers. So individual layers and family, community, and society. So we also believe that we have to address the issue of gender-based violence and the issue of gender inequality, uh, addressing the whole life of men. So we also call it using the life cycle approach. Uh, so all the project that we run is uh, we targeting husband and wife and also their kid. So
Mm-hmm.
and those programs should be run parallel. So when we have a father's class, uh, we have a mother's class for the sports, and also if those those parent have a kid or sons, and then we also uh, targeting them into our youth camp or youth workshop. Yeah. So that is the approach that we use. So we have to address the whole group. I mean, young boys, father or adult men, and uh, any other group in the community. So that is the approach that we use. I hope this makes clear about
Yes,
how
completely.
we contextualize the intersectionality uh, between different groups that we address here.
I think that's excellent. And I wonder, because we spoke to another very interesting trainer called Anand Power as part of the interview series a few interviews ago, and he said something interesting about especially when you're engaging men and boys in training, there is certain sort of specific kinds of resistances that can come up. And I wonder if you've encountered them, and what kinds of resistances, and how do you deal with those?
Yes, I would like to mention that when I was in Mumbai, I
Mm-hmm.
learned the first curriculum that I read is the curriculum that developed by Tatapi, and Anand is I think
Oh, wonderful.
is Anand Power is the executive director of Tatapi in Pune, I think.
Wonderful,
I
yes.
remember back in 2004. Yes, and yeah, we since the beginning, as I aware that it's not easy to talk about gender, about violence, about masculinity with a group of men.
Mhm.
We always thinking on using the appropriate word that not make them resistant to the issue that we bring. So
Mhm.
that is, but still, when we start running the class and start discussing about opening the crew, opening the training, opening the workshop, still some of them always say that they feel that the session or the workshop is blaming them as what as a perpetrator, as
Mhm.
the one should be blamed for for the case of violence against women and other violent cases. So that is
Mhm.
the response that usually I got from the participants. And even as I remember one day I was invited by TV station, local TV station in Jogja, and we
Mhm.
have a live talk show, and we talking about this issue, and then there's a man made a call, and
Mhm.
they what using the harsh word, and then
Uh,
uh, say to me that uh, what the what I'm stupid, and then that is live talk show. So
oh dear.
people are watching our TV program. And also one day I was invited in one seminar talking about polygamy, and there's another speaker from Hardliner group that uh, you know uh, they said to me that you are the foreign agent that would like to destroy our culture, and then so on and so on. So that is the response that I got from some some occasions when talking or discussing about this kind of issues in the workshop, in the seminar, and even in the TV talk show. So
Mhm.
that's some response that I got. Yeah.
And how do you, for example, in a workshop, if men feel like they're being blamed, or they feel, that they're being put in a difficult situation, how do you get round it? How do you, talk them out of that, or convince them that no, they're not being blamed for anything, but we're just trying to change these norms in which all of us operate, in order to make life better for everyone?
Yes. We usually discuss about uh, man is not born to be violent, but
Mhm.
men are learned uh, uh, use violence for in their communication. So that is the thing that usually I say to them. And also I always said that we would like to blame the behavior, not the person. So we have to respect the man, but we do not agree with the behavior that they use. Like, so as I said, that we blame their behaviors, not
Mhm.
not the man. So uh, that is usually that our response to the men who feel that they they will blame for any violence against women cases that happen in our society. So that is and also as I mentioned that in the workshop we use a reflection of approach. Usually we also invite men to think about uh, what are the important things in their life, and then most men usually talk about their family is the most important thing for them, and then also make them happy is also important, and then we discuss about if they do violence, it uh, is it the way they treat their family? Because as I mentioned that usually they said that the happiness of their family is the most important thing for
Mhm.
them, and so on. So that is some method that we use in uh, in the workshop session. So yeah, that is usually the response that usually we use. The important thing is, as I said, we will blame the behavior, not the man. And because in our um, approach, we also use uh, a positive approach. I mean, we respect men. So that is the approach that we use, and also uh, we we also use uh, what we call incentive approach, like giving reward to any change that made by a man is in our workshop or in our trainings. Yeah.
I think that's a very positive approach, and I wonder, because we're running out of time, but your talk has been so interesting, and I wonder if we could end also on a positive note, because I'm sure since you have such experience and such long-standing experience of these workshops and these training sessions, I wonder if you could tell us maybe an example of a sort of motivational story that you've had in your experiences. For example, where you've experienced or you've witnessed change in participants or in yourself through training.
Yes, just recently I documented uh, I documented the effect or the impacts of the 2 hours discussion that we run in East Nusa Tenggara Timur, and then you know in East Nusa Tenggara the culture of violence is very high. The use of alcohol is also very high, and also the culture is also patriarchal. So all the strategic position in the community mostly held by men. And then just few months ago, I went there and then make a discussion with a group of men and also a group of women there. I got inspiring story that according to the wife, that after their husband joining our workshop in community level, they said that there's so many things happen. For instance, uh, the decrease of the use of alcohol, and also their wife now, their husbands now start joining them in sharing household tasks, and also the husband now start engage in looking after their kids. So that is, and also the very important issue is, according to their wives, that men now stop using van in their communications. And there's one thing that's really important when a group of men who join the Aliansi Laki-Laki Baru workshop is support women's leaders to be a leader of the village. And then, because um, they elect the new village leader, and they promote uh, one of the women's figure to be a candidate of the village leader, and they support her. And then this group of men actively involved in promoting the women's candidate, and then mobilizing the community to vote, to vote her, and finally this lady to be the new head of the village. And even most of the majority of the village member vote her. Yeah. Almost probably almost 70 or 80% of the village member vote this lady to be the new head of the village. So I think this is, this village is in a very remote area, and the culture is very patriarchal. And then yeah, the community leader mostly men, and also is basically it's very quite difficult to have women's leader there. But finally, by support of the men's group in this village who engage in our workshop, then this lady, this female leader, elected as a village leader. So I think this is not only inspiring story. It's not just behavior change, but also changing the structure in our society, where when a group of men who what participate in our workshop promoting the women's leader, I think this is very important.
I agree. I think that's an incredibly inspiring case. And as you say, it shows it's more than just behavioral change or, skills acquisition. We're talking about training actually being a catalyst for social change and for real transformation. I think I couldn't have thought of a better example. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Okay, yeah. I think that is also the vision of our movement. It's not just changing individual, but our personal change, but we also would like to transform social norms. Yeah.
I think that's an excellent message, and thank you so much. I'm afraid we've run a bit over time, but thank you very much, Noor, for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you again for inviting me.
No, it's our pleasure, and it's been very enlightening and just a wonderful, wonderful talk. And we'll be posting this up. Pardon?
Yeah, I'm sorry for my English is not quite good, sorry.
It's excellent. It's completely excellent. And we'll post this recording up on YouTube so everyone can watch it on the YouTube channel. And I'd like to thank you again, Noor, for being here, and for everyone who listened in live. And we hope many other people will listen to it on YouTube so that they can learn from your excellent experiences.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Noor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a nice day.